Long before cities existed, before people thought of themselves as citizens or subjects, human life followed the rhythm of nature alone. Small groups moved across the land, hunting when they could and gathering what they found. There were no written rules to follow, no leaders ruling thousands, and no memory that stretched beyond living voices. Life was short, uncertain, and easily forgotten. Then, in one place on Earth, humans began to live differently. In southern Mesopotamia, sometime between 4,000 and 5,000 years before our time, two rivers cut through a harsh and unforgiving land. The Tigris and the Euphrates flooded without warning. Sometimes they destroyed everything. Other times, they brought life. The people who lived near these rivers learned that survival here required cooperation. They dug canals together, redirected water, and protected their fields. No single family could do this alone. And slowly, without realizing it, they were building something new. As farming became reliable, movement slowed. Temporary shelters were replaced by homes made of sun-dried mud bricks. Families settled close to one another. Paths worn by footsteps slowly turned into streets. People began to specialize. Some worked the fields from sunrise to sunset, growing barley and wheat. Others shaped clay into pottery, wove cloth, or forged tools. For the first time, survival depended not only on nature, but on strangers. Trust became necessary. Order became unavoidable. Over generations, villages expanded into cities. By around 3,500 BCE, places like Uruk, Ur, Lagash, and Eridu had grown larger than anything humanity had ever known. Uruk alone may have housed tens of thousands of people. These were not nations, but independent city-states, each with its own ruler, laws, and identity. At the heart of every city stood a towering temple complex, a reminder that humans did not believe they ruled alone. This was no longer tribal life. This was the first true civilization. The Sumerians believed the world was governed by powerful gods, whose moods shaped human fate. The sky belonged to Anu, wind and authority to Enlil, love, fertility, and war to Inanna. Every city was dedicated to a divine protector. Massive stepped temples called ziggurats rose above the skyline, believed to be earthly homes for the gods themselves. Priests managed land, labor, and resources on their behalf. Religion was not separate from life. It explained floods, illness, success, and failure. To live in Sumer was to live under divine watch. As cities grew more complex, memory alone could no longer keep pace. Harvests had to be counted, trade recorded, agreements remembered. So the Sumerians pressed reeds into wet clay, creating marks that represented objects, numbers, and eventually sounds. This system became known as cuneiform. At first, it was practical lists of grain, livestock, and goods. Over time, it captured prayers, hymns, laws, and stories. Scribes trained for years in special schools, learning a skill that granted immense power. For the first time in human history, thoughts could outlive the thinker. History had begun. With growing populations came conflict. Disputes over land, trade, and responsibility became common. To manage this, authority expanded. Kings ruled cities, claiming divine approval for their power. Officials enforced laws. Courts settled disagreements. Punishments varied depending on social status. The system was imperfect and unequal, but it brought order to crowded cities. This was the foundation of government, not ideal, but necessary. Daily life for most Sumerians remained simple and demanding. At dawn, farmers walked to the fields. Artisans opened workshops. Merchants prepared goods for exchange. Meals were modest: barley bread, dates, onions, and fish. Beer was common, thick and shared communally. Children learned trades by watching their parents. Few learned to read or write. Life was hard. Disease was common. The gods were feared. Yet people belonged to something larger than themselves: a city, a culture, a shared way of life. Sumer lacked many natural resources, so trade became essential. Boats traveled along rivers. Caravans crossed long distances. Grain and textiles were exchanged for copper, timber, and precious stones. Along with goods, ideas traveled. The Sumerians refined technologies that would shape the future: the wheel, the plow, the sailboat, standardized weights and measures. Through trade, civilization spread outward from Mesopotamia. The world became connected. Over time, the land began to change. Intensive irrigation damaged the soil. Harvests weakened. New powers rose. By around 2300 BCE, Sargon of Akkad conquered the Sumerian city-states, forming the world's first empire. The Sumerian language slowly faded from daily use, replaced by others. But their systems endured. Today, their cities lie buried beneath sand and earth, yet their influence surrounds us. Writing, cities, law, administration, trade. The Sumerians did not set out to change the world. They were simply trying to survive in a difficult land. And in doing so, they created the foundation of civilization itself. 5,000 years later, their voices are silent, but their legacy speaks everywhere. In the land between two rivers, humanity took its first step toward civilization, and the world has never been the same.